And well, welcome to our SPDIG Early Childhood Community of Practice. We have a pretty full agenda today and a great presentation that's going to be coming your way. And we'll start out in a second here with some welcome and introductions. We do want to talk about a meeting opportunity at the OSEP Leadership Conference in August and get your input of how you'd like that structured. Sun Young is going to share some exciting OSEP updates. I'm going to share quickly a webinar series that we have coming up this summer for a professional development opportunity for states. And then we're going to go into our presentation today, which is going to be on transition. And it's going to be with Sharon Lunn and Michelle Lewis from the Daisy Center. So we're very excited to have Sharon and Michelle with us today. And then at the end, talk about any future meeting topics. And John will put in our chat a poll so you can add to topics you'd like to see going forward. So we'll just go around and do welcome and introductions. We have a small group, so if you want to come off audio, that's great. If you don't and you're doing other things and just want to drop it in the chat, that's fine too. But I'll start, and I'm, as many of you know, I'm Ted Burke. I'm with the Early Childhood Technical Assistance Center. I live in Hawaii, so excited to say that the weather here is like it always is, sunny and beautiful. And if you guys can just share one of the following, and so I'm going to share what I'm excited about this summer is I'm actually going in 2 weeks to Spain and going to do a day trip to Morocco while we're there. We'll be in southern Spain, and I've never been to either. So my sister-in-law, who's a world traveler, has a place there this summer. So we're going to go visit her. And so very excited to do that. And John or Sun Young, you guys want to?
Sure, I'm off mute, so I can jump in real quick. Of course, remind people, my name's John Lind. I operate the SIG network in conjunction with Jennifer Coffey and the various other OSEP personnel project officers, and of course with Ted's guidance on this COP. Let's see, something I'm excited about this summer. Well, just last night I met with 2 other fathers, and there's 3 families that we're getting ready to do a 4-day rafting trip on the Deschutes River. So really excited about that. You know, one of the things we talked about is river rafting is kind of like car camping, but in wilderness. So really excited about that piece.
I'll go next. Mine is not as exciting as John's or Ted's. Both of you, your plans sound amazing. But I can talk about a book I'm looking forward to read. So I haven't started it yet, but I'm looking forward to read All the Beauty in the World. One of my friends recommended the book to me. It's about a guy who worked as a security guard in the Metropolitan Museum in New York, and he lost his brother. So he's kind of talking about his thoughts on the art pieces and also, I guess, his brother. So I'm looking forward to reading it. If somebody already read it, let me know how it was. So I'm looking forward to that. Who wants to go next?
I'll go next. I'm Patty Salcido from California, and we are the PEPD project, to Partnerships and Effective Practices in Transition and Inclusion. And the book I'm currently reading is Belonging Without Othering by John A. Powell and Stephen Menendian. I'm not very far into it, but so far it's great. And the subtitle is How We Save Ourselves and the World, which was definitely the hook. And just like to do our own gloating and introduce Wei Bing Chen, who's our new evaluator in California.
Hi, thanks, Patty. I guess I should go next since you introduced me. I'm new. I'm a few weeks into this position. I'm learning all that I can. I have a long history of doing early childhood program evaluation and technical assistance, but have always been kind of tangential to special education. So there's a lot for me to learn there. I actually come from SRI International. I see folks from the Daisy Center here, and ECTA. So I've been like in that, on the outskirts of that arena for a long time. But this summer, I am going on a road trip. We're leaving 2 weeks from now to the Southwest. So we're going to drive to Arizona, New Mexico, and then do a loop up through Southern Colorado and back up to California. So I'm really excited.
So
It's nice to meet you all, see you all.
I can go next. I think John and Ted in particular are probably surprised I waited as long as I did. I'm usually first off mute. I'm Leslie Fox. I'm at West Ed, and well, my company is West Ed. I am the project director for one of the OSEP early childhood model demonstration projects specific to Child Find. I live in Virginia Beach, Virginia, where, much like Sun Young, I have been experiencing a lot of rain and dreariness, and frankly, outright cold for us, you know, this time of year. Had to find a long sleeve shirt today. I was like, be gads. But so what am I excited? I'll actually pick, I don't know if this is the best thing happening in my professional life right now. That's a tall order to say it's best. But after 11 years, I have finally gotten around to drafting a manuscript for my dissertation study and getting the process in place to get that published. And I've sort of gave myself a little kick in the butt to do it. So that I could develop a training curriculum based on my approach and maybe market that in my next life. And so I'm kind of excited to think about a curriculum and a professional development series related to, in this particular case, exercise and individuals with autism. So super excited about that. Thank you.
awesome. Anybody else want to share?
I can go next. I apologize, I was a little bit late. My name's Deb Knoll, and I'm with Pennsylvania, which you can see in my background here. I work for the Office of Child Development and Early Learning, and I'm a division chief with the Bureau of Early Intervention Services and Family Supports. I have two things that I'm very excited about this summer, so I like that question. My son is getting married in Bethany Beach, Delaware, next month. And then in August, I'm taking my first ever cruise out of the Baltimore port to Bermuda. So very exciting summer. I'm looking forward to it. So good to see everybody. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Lucy Belts from Montana. My work for the Office of Public Instruction, and my role is early learning and special education specialist. This summer, I'm taking a solo trip to Porto, Portugal, and so I've never done that before, and I'm excited to check it out.
I'll go next. This is Georgette Nemmer. I'm with the Connecticut State Department of Education. I'm the SPDIG grant director. And let's see, what am I excited about? Well, it's not in the summer, but it's in the fall, and I'll be going to Italy. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to stay in Tuscany for quite some time. So I look forward to that. But this summer, it's going to be all work all the time. So welcome, everybody.
Anyone else?
I can go. Hi, I'm Amanda Working. I'm from Virginia. I support the Virginia SPDIG. I'm an evaluator from the Center for Implementation and Evaluation of Education Systems, and we help support the Virginia Tiered System of Supports with their evaluation efforts. And what book I'm currently reading is I'm actually reading Fourth Wing again, just because I haven't gotten out to Onyx Storm and I had read that a while back. So kind of rereading the book. Trying to remember everything so I can get myself back up to reading Onyx Storm.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. I don't think our speakers, I'll let them introduce themselves when they come on, but I think we've got everybody unless I'm missing someone. All right. Well, one of the things we did want to talk about is that we're excited that the OSEP Leadership Conference is happening this summer in August. And I'm guessing it won't be as cool and rainy in August. As we all know, it may be rainy, but it won't be cool. But one of the opportunities that we have is we have a meeting room for this group on the first day from 4:30 to 5:30. And for those of you that attended last year, we had a really good turnout. And I think we really learned a lot about like what all the other states were doing. And it was a very informal, like almost circle time, where we really shared the activities we'd done around this project. And I think everybody got to meet with everybody in person. And it was at the end of the day. And it was, I think some people went for cocktails or beverages afterwards. So I think we would love to have that opportunity again, but would like your input if there's things you'd like to get out of or you would like to be a part of that meeting. So any thoughts?
I'm game. I think it's getting a little we're forgetting that it's 50 years of IDEA, right? This is 50 years of IDEA, and I just would be fascinated to just chat about just the way our programs have changed and evolved. And of course, as an early childhood person, particularly Part C wasn't part of the original IDEA, and yeah, there's just a lot to celebrate in terms of what we've accomplished. There's still so much more to do, right? But it's just a lot to really appreciate in the hard work and the use of things like the SPDIG funds to meet the needs of our youngest children and families with disabilities.
Ted, I don't have anything really about the meeting other than to share with Sun Young and our SPDIG colleagues at the Ed Department that the confusion over the number of people who can go has caused me to step back. So I had hoped to attend, but it's not going to happen. So, and this is not just our department, but I've heard this from many of the education technical assistance centers. I mean, there's just confusion over the limited number of attendees. And so sorry to derail or hijack the meeting on this point, but I just wanted to share that with you. Otherwise, I would have joined you.
Yeah. Georgia, we understand. And, this year there was a limit to the number of participants per project or per state team. So maybe our first question should be how, who's planning to attend the conference this year? If you are, please let us know using the chat or raise your hand. So we have some, you get an idea of an estimate. So let us know.
Yeah, Sun Young, I would just say to you that we've always had a specific team that attended in the past, and that were at least 5 people hitting the areas identified by OSEP, and so SPDIG kind of like came outside of the noted areas that would typically attend, and I'm sorry for that, but not sure there's anything I could do about it.
Yeah. We completely understand. But Ted and I will be there at the National Landing 2 meeting room. If you do go to the conference, please come by. We can chat. We can talk about the contents we covered. I think we covered many topics that are common interest to many of you. We talked about coaching one time. We spent some time to discuss the pyramid model implementation. Today we'll be talking about transition. So I think as a community, we covered a lot of great content. So we'd love to kind of connect with you and discuss how our meetings have been or have not been helpful, and also what else we can provide moving forward. So we'll be there. If you can, please come by. Maybe we'll go for a drink after the meeting. Or
Absolutely. Yeah, my understanding is the meeting room is very close to the hotel lounge. So, and we will transition that, Soon-Young, while you have the floor, into the OSEP updates.
Thanks, Ted. Mine will be really short. I just have a couple of updates. One update, maybe most of you already know, but we have a new political appointee that oversees OSERS, so Office of Special Education Programs, and also the Rehabilitation Services Programs. So her name is Diana Diaz Harrison, the DAS, and if you go to the conference, if you do get to go to the conference, you'll probably see her and hear her at the conference. She's coming to us from Arizona, and she is a parent of an adult son with autism. And she also founded a charter school for students with autism in Arizona. So that's just a little bit about her background. So it's good that we have a new political appointee, political leader. And my another update is that yesterday, we were able to publish new competitions. So the new competition, 3 competitions we were able to publish yesterday are personal preparation. So if you are working with IHE partners, please let them know. We have new 3 to 5D doctoral program competition. We have 3 to 5K kind of master's and educational specialists and clinical doctorate level. We are requiring interdisciplinary projects that a project that brings a special education and related service program together, so that schools can train those professionals in an interdisciplinary setting together. And then the last competition we published is 3 to 5M, minority serving institutions and HBCUs and tribal college and college and universities. So please spread the word, and I'll put the Federal Register links in the chat. So those are my updates. Thanks, Ted.
Thanks, Soon-Young. I have also just a quick update on an opportunity that ECTA is offering this summer. We're hosting a 5-part webinar series, and I'm actually going to post in the chat the registration and a website about the webinar. This is for early intervention, early childhood special ed system leaders and their professional development and TA providers. And it's really to learn about our engaging professional development to improve changing practices cycle, or EPIC-P. And no, that's not like an album I had in college. That is like the name of the group. And it's a process, it's actually a cycle that addresses how to do professional development and support your state system. That includes need analysis, design, ongoing, and an array of professional development experiences and evaluation. This series is going to take place over 5 dates, all 3 o'clock Eastern time. So if you or anyone in your state might be interested or has a role in professional development or TA, this is a great opportunity. So yeah, if you can just go to the chat and click on the registration. If you have any questions, feel free to write them in the chat, or you can email me afterwards. And without further ado, we went a little bit longer with our opening, but we want to get to our presentation and our presenters. And Sharon and Michelle, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, but thank you so much for taking the opportunity to share with our group today about early childhood transition and all the plethora of resources that we have at the 2 centers.
Absolutely, Ted. Thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you all for allowing us to be here today. I did have an opportunity to talk with Ted just very briefly prior to today's call, and he sort of enlightened me on what the ask of us is today. He did make it clear that everyone on this group is very much interested in improving and prioritizing the C2B transition and providing adequate support to children and families. And so Michelle and I are here in that spirit. I will say again that I am Sharon Lunn. I am a TA specialist with the ECTA Center. And so we will attempt to be very brief today, but wanted to kind of start today's presentation with a bit of context, recognizing that this is a mixed group and, you know, sort of mixed or various roles are kind of represented on the call today. So we wanted to do a little bit of level setting and just kind of defining early childhood transition and sort of what that actually means. I will say, just kind of looking across the call, I know that there are many of you on that are very familiar with early childhood transition. I do see some familiar faces, so I just ask that you bear with us if we're preaching to the choir as we kind of go through some of these slides. But the first, again, if we could just move to the next slide, Ted, just want to, again, reiterate the definition of the early childhood transition. It is indeed a process where a child with a disability transitions from receiving early intervention services under IDEA Part C to receiving preschool services under IDEA Part B, Section 619, if they are deemed eligible. So when we speak of the early childhood transition, in essence, that is what we are talking about. The eligible child, as many of you know, goes from receiving services through an IFSP to an IEP or to another community early childhood program. Right. We know that IDEA requires that children receiving early intervention under Part C who are potentially eligible for Part B, 619, that they experience a smooth, effective, and ultimately a timely transition to preschool and other programs. So both Part C and Part B agencies are expected to work together, of course, to ensure this smooth transition for early intervention or from early intervention to preschool special ed services by developing, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, but essentially to achieve this outcome, it's expected that both agencies really work together to develop and maintain mechanisms that would clearly define and support the accountability measures that are used within and between the LEA and the early intervention service programs and providers of other early childhood programs. And so in essence, that is our definition. So as we move to the next slide, we just want to clearly state the IDEA requirement. So as you see there, and as per the federal regulations, IDEA requires each state to have in place policies and procedures that it will use to ensure the smooth transition for infants and toddlers with disabilities, of course, under the age of 3, as well as their families from, again, receiving those early intervention services under Part C to preschool or other appropriate services for toddlers with disabilities, or those exiting the programs for infants and toddlers with disabilities altogether. So we want to pause just a second here and just kind of engage our first chat question. We don't have a poll today, but we will ask that you all just sort of engage with us a little bit in the chat. And so again, just knowing that there is a mixed group here, we wanted to gauge how each of you would rate your familiarity with the early childhood transition processes. And so if you just drop in the chat for us, if you are not familiar, somewhat familiar, or if you consider yourself to be very familiar with early childhood transition processes. Okay, I see somewhat, very familiar. Yep, very familiar. Okay. Good, very, okay, very familiar. Oh man. All right. Well, again, I'll go back to what I said initially. Those of you who are very familiar, please just kind of bear with us as we get through this today. or chime in, right? So it seems like we're on a call of experts. So certainly chime in if there's anything that we miss or that you feel is important to lift up amongst this group. Thank you for doing that. So moving on to our objectives or our agenda for the few minutes that we'll be together today. We first want to review just very briefly, considering the wealth of knowledge that is on this call around the early childhood transition. We want to just review very briefly the transition responsibilities for Part C and Part B, and then share what we know from states. We want to provide a very high-level overview of the transition tools and resources that are accessible on the ECTA site, and then discuss how your states can access TA support. And ultimately, we want to engage discussion around the early childhood transition and the supports that are available to you in your states. So with that, I'm going to turn it to Michelle to talk us through the transition responsibilities.
Thanks, Sharon. So my name is Michelle Lewis, and I am actually a parent center consultant on the DAISY Center. So I work and run a parent training and information center in New Hampshire. And I'm also a TA provider for our New Hampshire Department of Education with one focus on transition. So I come to you with a little bit of a unique perspective in that we are taking calls from families as well around this transition process. And as Sharon said, oh, next slide, Ted. I was trying to advance the slides myself. That didn't work very well. So we're just doing a high level overview just to do some level setting, as we said, because that'll help us when Sharon is introducing the resources, kind of where they're coming from. So this really is a very basic snapshot of the process. And we're going to walk through mostly the purpose of each of them, not getting into the nitty gritty, but Sharon put the arrows in, which I really like, so you can actually see the flow of how a smooth transition should work. So next slide. So when we think about the first part, we think about the transition plan. And this really is about providing support, identifying different roles and responsibilities, supports and services. And it's a plan that's developed by the IFSP team. And I want to highlight here that, and sometimes when I'm working with families, this can be a little bit challenging. Because families are thinking, well, we're going to go on to the school district. Well, that may be the case, but with the transition plan, you're exploring all of your options, because at this point, again, you're looking at least 90 days to 9 months for all exiting children. You really want to explore and consider all of the different options that the child and family may need, and plan for those multiple pathways, and including all those different steps and things that you, as a team, may be helping the family and the child explore. Next slide. And then we get into transition notification. And there's 3 bullets above that highlight, you know, the overall purpose of transition notification. And one is certainly to make sure there's a smooth and effective transition process between the 2 systems, looking at the implementation of Part B child find responsibilities, and also making sure that Part B can meet the responsibilities and provide sufficient time, particularly if a child is eligible to get that IEP written. Transition notification is not a permission-based process. The lead agency must provide the SEA, the State Education Agency, and the LEA with notification of all toddlers who are potentially eligible for Part B. No fewer than 90 days before the child turns 3. Notification has to be consistent with any opt-out policy. And based on the work of the transition work group that Sharon and I co-lead, roughly, Sharon, right, about 50% of states or territories have an opt-out policy. I believe.
Maybe just, I would just, maybe just under that, Michelle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just under that. So it might be something, if you aren't aware whether or not you have an opt-out policy or those types of things, to kind of take a look at that. Because families can opt out of that transition notification going over to the Part B side. So they're not giving permission to do kind of that FERPA related information. And one of the key pieces here on the Part B responsibility side is that when Part B receives that notification, whether it be the SEA or the appropriate LEA, it must be treated as a referral under Part B. And so it starts that process. Next slide. So then we talk about the transition conference. And once again, this is another opportunity for the family, the lead agency, and now at this point, the LEA, to come together to take a look at all the different services that a toddler may receive under Part B if they're eligible. It really helps the family look at making informed decisions. So what do they want to do? Because they'll talk about Part B eligibility and evaluation, all of that type of information. This is a Part C responsibility. Part C has the responsibility to schedule and convene the transition conference. And again, it must be held not fewer than 90 days and at the discretion of all parties, not more than 9 months. So I'm sure you saw a pattern in kind of the timeline here. And from a Part B responsibility side, IDEA requires that the LEA participate in the transition planning conference that's arranged by Part C. Really, part of their responsibilities is to be the one who explains the special education process, eligibility, evaluations, all of those types of things. So that's why it's really important that both Part C and Part B be at this transition planning conference in order to have the family make informed decisions. Next, okay. Eligibility and IEP development. The purpose, the broad statement of the purpose is to ensure a free, appropriate public education at age 3. So we thought we'd leave it at that. No, I'm just kidding. So what does that really mean, right? The Part B has to comply with their child find responsibilities and conduct the timely evaluation and eligibility determination. And if they need parent consent for evaluation, if they need more information, that they conduct that evaluation. And one of the keys here, and it ties straight back up to the purpose, is that the LEA must develop and implement an IEP by the 3rd birthday if that child who was referred by Part C is eligible. So it's really ensuring that children have eligibility determined and an IEP in place if they are referred by Part C by their 3rd birthday. Next slide. I see there's a question in the chat, so we can talk about that. Permission to adapt the slides for PD in our state. Great question. Sharon and I can certainly, I think, Ted, were you going to share these with participants as well?
I can talk to that, Michelle. This is John, of course.
Oh, John.
That's okay. Our intention was to put these as PDFs on the SIG Network website, of course, according to your permission. One thing, if you want to strip back some of the details or adapt them so they are more of a template, go ahead and do that and send those to me.
Okay.
And then I can put those on the website.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You bet.
So in terms of what we know, next slide. All right, those are a lot of words on your screen, and we recognize that. We wanted you to have the information. So when we look at state performance and annual reporting, so state performance plan, annual performance report, We know that the federal government requires that states for both Part C and Part B do data collection related to early childhood transitions. It looks a little different. So as you look at Part C, and it's affectionately known as indicator C8, so indicator 8 for Part C, there are 3 components to it. And it's just actually what we went over. So the data that's collected is related to making sure that there's a transition plan within the timelines, making sure notification of any child who's potentially eligible for Part B preschool services at least 90 days before the 3rd birthday. And one of the things I will say, I know you're all, it sounds like pretty familiar with this process, but different states have different definitions of what potentially eligible means. And so I encourage you from whatever role you sit in to find out what is your state's definition of potentially eligible and how that works, because that definitely affects your indicator. And also that a transition conference is held with the approval of the family within that same time frame as well, meaning at least 90 days before the 3rd birthday. On the Part B side, it's what we talked about under eligibility in IEP development, in terms of making sure they're reporting on children who are found eligible for Part B 619 that are developed and implemented by the 3rd birthday. At the Daisy Center, we have lots of different data collection documents in collaboration with ECTA. There are indicator checklists that have been reviewed and approved by OSEP to make sure you have the latest information to go through to look at whether you are collecting the information that you need to collect and report. Next slide.
Michelle, did you want to talk at all about the performance trends from 22? So just kind of what we know in terms of state performance around transition? Not sure what would be interested in that.
Yep, I sure can. 1 second. So in terms of, if we look at the performance trends related to, in particular, Part C, we're looking at that it was going from the mean really has stayed steady at 97 to 98%. As we look at that, when we talk about 8A, which is that transition planning piece, when we look at notification, it has also stayed pretty steady through the last state performance plan, right around 97 to 98% as well. And then 8C, and I'll put this in the chat so you can look at the current indicator data. And for the transition conference, the mean has really been steady around 95 to 96%. But if you want to look at the latest piece, again, I just put that in the chat. You can look at the latest indicator analysis. So you could take a look at those trends from the 2022 SPP APR. So you have that at your fingertips. All right.
Right. Thanks, Michelle. And so that was a lot of information that Michelle and I have shared here initially. So we want to stop a minute and give you all an opportunity to talk. So this is our initial discussion opportunity. We would really love to hear from you, what you know about your state. So, just interested in what you can share about early childhood transition in your respective states. Eager to know what is working well, whether or not your state is experiencing challenges in the area of early childhood transition and what those might be. And then what, if any, PD activities has your state planned or initiated around the early childhood transition?
Well, I will share what we're working on right now. We just concluded a needs assessment of both our birth to 3 or Part C program providers, as well as our pre-K early childhood coordinators in our school districts in Connecticut. We had 321 respondents to our needs assessment, and while there was one big surprise, but some of the trends in the data basically confirmed some of the areas we had already identified and flagged as potential issues in the transition and the work between both sides. So just as an example, I'm not going to go into all of the data, but one of the questions we asked is how frequently does the IFSP provide sufficient data to inform plan evaluation and eligibility decisions? And so there was a complete difference of opinion between the birth to 3 side and the pre-K special ed side. The other big piece around the transition conference is the scheduling piece. So it is not always working in favor of the school districts because of, the need to do things either after school or evening hours for parent purposes. And of course, school districts cannot always accommodate that. So that, again, not a big surprise to us that scheduling was an issue identified by both sides. The other piece you kind of touched on in your presentation is the ability to explain pre-K special ed and what those pre-K special ed options. And here too, we found a big gap in difference, whereas the birth to 3 providers, a significant portion of them felt confident in their ability to do so, to explain to the parent what the options are. Our pre-K special ed folks did not feel that the birth to 3 parents had been provided sufficient information or accurate information about special ed eligibility, because there is a big difference between qualifying and being eligible for birth to 3 services versus qualifying for special ed. So it's not only the disability, but that there is a specific need for academic support and or functional support. So those are just some of the 3 highlights of the data we collected. We are going to survey parents next to find out what their concerns are, and we'll do so in multiple languages so we can collect that, knowing that many of our parents are non-English speakers. The other thing that I will highlight to you that was a big topic of conversation is really also something you touched on in terms of evaluation and whether districts conduct their own independent evaluation for eligibility determination rather than rely solely on the birth to 3 evaluation. And we found a surprising number of districts did not conduct additional evaluation for special ed eligibility. So those are some of the big highlights of our data, and that we will be using to inform our work around systems change in Connecticut. So we have much more to do, much more to work on with our Office of Early Childhood and birth to 3 providers, as well as our pre-K special ed representatives and the department consultant who works in this area. So just to kind of, I'm sorry if I'm taking too much time, but I just wanted to share that with you. This is a pretty complicated system, and transitioning from one to the other is, it takes way more than a village to do this work. And I so respect and appreciate all the people involved, but we've got a lot of work to do. Anyway, I will leave it at that.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you so much, Georgette. So very insightful. I tell you, as Michelle and I were approaching this call, we thought, okay, how can we share useful information, but also glean something that is going to be helpful and pertinent to the work and the support that we are providing to states. So what you've shared is spot on, and a wonderful segue into some additional context as far as what we know from states. Ted, if you could move us to the next slide. And I will attempt to talk really quickly, but what Georgette shared is very much in line with what we believe that we know based on the work that we've done in states. So just thinking in terms of state experiences and the successes and challenges that states report experiencing, we know that there are various longstanding, right, successes and challenges that have emerged, and some that continue to evolve as states work through this early childhood transition process. So through the work of these TA centers like ECTA and DAISY, we've learned that some of the challenges that states are addressing include many of those that you've shared, as well as coordinating the SEA and the LEA notification. So again, going back to that timing piece, effective data sharing is one. Michelle sort of touched on that, and some of the resources that DAISY can provide, the support that they can provide related to the data component. The overall effective alignment in Part C and Part B system efforts. So again, it goes back to the scheduling and all of those things. And so that tells us that the interagency coordination, interagency agreement, and effective MOU, just how important all of those things are. And so we'll talk here in a second about the resources that we have that could support states' work in those areas. So thinking about some of the strategies that states are using, some examples from states who are implementing or really continuing to work towards ensuring a smooth and effective transition include exploring the Part C extended option or other strategies that would include Part C and Part B working together, really being collaborative in their efforts to ensure those optimal outcomes for children and families. Several states are prioritizing training and professional development specific to the early childhood transition process, just as it sounds like Connecticut is doing. Many are streamlining and sharing their notification process to ensure that it occurs in a timely manner, which we believe, definitely helps with the timely scheduling of the meetings and conferences surrounding the transition. And then improved efficiency within those data systems to make those notifications and to collect and ultimately use the transition data for program improvement. So just moving on to the tools and the resources that we have available to support states in all of these many layers and levels of work around the transition. We have of course, tools and resources available through the ECTA site, which is what we'll be highlighting today, but also know that there are tools and resources respective to the data component that are also available through the DAISY site. So as we discuss these, we will provide you with both QR codes so that you can access those immediately here on the call, as well as links for you to access this information. So Ted, if you'll move us to the next slide. What you see here is just kind of a layout of the materials that are available, the information and materials that are available via the ECTA Center's transition topic page. So again, you have a QR code. So those of you who may have your handheld devices handy and you want to pull that up and just kind of peruse as we're talking, feel free to do so. Michelle can also drop some links in the chat for us. But you'll see as you navigate the transition topic page that there is a repository of useful materials that are available there. And those include the federal requirements. That would be one of the first tabs that you see when you move to that website. We also have OSEP resources on transition, which includes OSEP guidance, various policy letters, requested training modules. And one of our most widely used transition resources that was actually developed by our TA centers is the chart of federal IDEA Part C and Part B transition requirements for late referrals. Like that is, as Michelle said, as co-leads of this transition team, that is one of the requests that we receive most often is support around late referrals and kind of what to do in that regard. We also have resources from national centers related to transition. We have state examples. So those would be examples of state agreements, like we're talking about those interagency agreements, those MOUs that help to ensure a smooth transition from C to B. Respective state guidance. So, you know, as you go, you may see information from your states there or other states that we consider exemplars in this area, and then various state forms as well. On another tab, you'll find information related to monitoring for indicators C8 and B12. Also, we have information that pertains to eligibility differences between Part C and Part B, Section 619, and then ultimately the transition from preschool services to kindergarten. So I will note that the cross-center transition work group that Michelle and I co-lead, we are actually in the process of revising or updating this topic page and its content. And so we are really excited about the work that is being done there, and also pulling over many of the data resources that we're talking about, those that are existing, hoping to link from the ECTA page directly to those DAISY resources so that it's easier to access for our state partners. So under the OSEP, if you could move us to the next, there you go. Thank you, Ted. So under the OSEP resource tab, there's just a few resources that we really want to call attention to. We won't have time today to talk through them in detail, but again, some of the most popular and those resources that we tend to reach for most often as we're supporting states is the 2023 Early Childhood Transition Q&A document. You see on the slide what this document consists of. It's sort of a culmination of federal guidance that has been updated and compiled into this one Q&A. That is one of the foremost resources that we use with states related to the transition. Ted, if we could move to, let's move to the next slide. Thank you. Yes. We can go on to the resource. We were hoping to just inquire, but maybe it's just something that you can sit with. Whether or not you are aware of the interagency agreement or the MOU on early childhood transition that exists in your state. Many times we find that our partners are not. So we're working with states related to transition and they're like, well, agreement, MOU, like what is that? So that is a critical piece to this whole collaboration effort, right? So you definitely want to be sure, if you're not familiar, that you you seek out that MOU or that interagency agreement between B and C in your state. Another resource that is critically important is the guidance. Next slide, Ted. OSEP's guidance on creating an effective MOU. I think we need to jump back just one slide. There we go. And so again, we have a QR code there for you. Michelle, I believe, can or will put the link in the chat.
Yeah.
So this, again, the guidance on creating an effective MOU provides information on how to develop and maintain an MOU or interagency agreement that would ensure compliance and achieve results for children and families transitioning. And so as you kind of go through that resource, you'll find that it was co-developed between OSEP and Head Start. However, the information in this resource does pertain to any agency that is updating MOUs or that is developing an MOU related to the early childhood transition. So we do encourage you to make use of that if that is work that your state is currently engaged. And then finally, in terms of a critical resource, we have the OSEP transition checklist. And this checklist is used to assist states in ensuring that they have policies and interagency agreements that actually comply with the federal requirements for transitioning children from Part C to Part B. And so again, if your state is one that is engaged in rewriting, developing, or revising policies and procedures, this is another resource that is critically important to ensure that it is compliant and includes that your policies and procedures include all of the elements that are required under federal statute. So in terms of TA support, finally, we are providing contact information for both Michelle and myself. Next slide, Ted. As the transition topic co-leads, again, I represent ECTA. Michelle is representing DAISY, and so you have our contact information there. On the next slide, you also see the link to your state contact. If you are not familiar, both ECTA and DAISY assign a technical assistance contact for each state, and you can find your state's ECTA state contact or DAISY liaison at the links that we have provided there. That, in essence, concludes our presentation with 2 minutes left. And so any additional information that you need relative to either center, please feel free to reach out if there is anything that we can do to support you in your work.
Sharon and Michelle, thank you so much. I am amazed that you pulled this off in the time that we gave you, but in our last couple minutes, does anybody have any questions for Sharon or Michelle related to this topic?
If thoughts or questions come to mind, questions, or epiphanies come to mind after today's call, please use that contact information, reach out to either Michelle or myself. We would be thrilled to talk to any of you.
And we in California would also be interested in using the information from this presentation, if we could, in our TA materials. We're developing an online module through our family resource centers, actually focused on families. And some of the charts and things are such a nice way to present information in an understandable way. So we'd love to do that.
And again, Sharon and Michelle, if you'll send me a kind of stripped back portion of this slide deck that is easily adapted, I can post that on the website and share it that way.
Okay, we can get together on that. Thank you so much.
Great.
Yep.
And Sharon and Michelle, I also appreciated your partnership, modeling this great partnership. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, everybody. We're at the top of the hour. So just to let everybody know, we do have our regularly scheduled meeting on July 23rd, and then the August 5th opportunity in person at Leadership. And we'll be getting information out to you, and I'm sure you'll hear from John once this is uploaded to the site. And again, thank you so much to our presenters, and thank all of you for coming and sharing your exciting adventures that are happening this summer. So thank you so much.
Thank you,
Bye,
Ted.
everyone.
Have a great day.
Bye.